Hey, how's everybody doing today? We're gonna go into news and cartoons. I like to look at the past few weeks in cartoons, editorial cartoons specifically. It's a nice little snapshot of things that are happening in the world. I find that different editorial cartoonists have a amazing way of just capturing what's on people's minds. So that's why I like to look at this. I also review quite a few different news sources to get a bigger picture perspective of current events, and I just like to stay on top of what's happening in the world, and I like to work with um, different sources. So this is just one of the different sources that I like to use for these types of things. So I'm gonna go in real quick. Yeah, so this is from the 16th through the 20th. I'm a little backed up. Just want to go through real quick. So, see, I don't know. Some are just funny. This is at least that line used to work better. At least I'm not Trump. Classified docs, and it's supposed to be Biden, of course. So always in the back burner. Still banned 24/7 news. Different scandal. I like Inspector Clouseau. That's funny. Like it's a background population shift. Interesting. Debt ceiling. We can't afford eggs. Oh no. Garage sale. Hunter. Confidential files. Classic. Hunter's laptop. That's awesome. Hunter Biden's laptop. Pretty silly. Unclassified docs on fading fast. Adams. Yeah, so it's a nice little snapshot there for the past week. It kind of goes from there. Want to keep news and cartoons collection from a lot of different sources, a lot of different editorial cartoons from all over the country. So this is for the last week. So it should be interesting. Biden's documents, obviously, like a big topic still. Classified documents at his house and his garage. Debt ceiling, wild weather, I guess, is a lot of different things. But this is funny. This kid's looking for comic books and he finds the top secret documents. Oh, Biden running in 2024. I don't know. It's kind of scary thought. Session. Yeah, the economy is pretty strong right now, realistically. Everybody's been talking about a recession, but really about global, um, corporate earnings is really a major component right now with the economy. A lot of other elements are really in place for really a strong economy moving forward. I mean, strong workforce and all these recessionary fears are kind of falling by the wayside. So, I mean, I'm not giving Biden any credit for anything, but realistically, I mean, things are pretty good. I mean, inflation's still high, historically, but it's really about corporate earnings propping up the market this year. Ways a lot of the Fed rate hikes have been priced in, so it doesn't really matter at this point. And people they just want to get back into the market and so they can blast off into the stratosphere. So, but yeah, I mean, gotta give some credit where credit's due. So, jeez, yeah, Ukraine, what a disaster, so bad. Wow, this is funny. Everybody's trading classified documents. Trump, Biden, Pence. That's funny. That's cute. What it means? What's it mean if you have the same nightmare over and over again? You're awake. Awesome. It's funny. California, Monterey Park. Jeez, what a disaster. Yeah, it's just horrible. I mean, one mass shooting after another. I mean, I think ultimately, I mean, all of our weapons are going to be taken away from us, but hopefully it doesn't happen anytime soon. So, Sergeant Schultz. I'm not. What do we got here? I guess they must be all looking for Biden's visitor logs for his. That's funny. Wow, are there such things as golden eggs? You would think. Egg prices, yeah, through the roof. Crazy. On the debt ceiling default, jeez. Yeah, that would be a disaster if the U.S. ever defaulted. I mean, the entire global economy would implode probably within a month. But Sierra snowpack, 245% of normal. Wow. Yeah, so I just want to grab a little of these cartoons. I find them funny, if anything, but they really seem to capture like a nice little snapshot of what happened over the past week and in a lot of different ways, a lot of different approaches, a lot of different cartoon styles, and it's really amazing that somebody can just kind of articulate in a very simplistic way what's on everybody's mind. So I always look at that to assess what happened over the past week. It's always pretty interesting. So yeah, great. Have a good time. Current events analysis, part of the broadcast, I like to focus on these newsletters that I get from the cuttingedge.org website. And, I'm not going to be reading through every single article, but there's quite a few articles. There's normally two or three newsletters per week that, analyze a lot of different news sources all over the world and, the Middle East, Jerusalem Post, or, anything that comes up in the States and, uh, Canadian news sources, whatever it is, European news sources. So I, it's really nice to have an assessment of things that are happening in current affairs, current events that uh, looks at things from a biblical standpoint. So that's why I like this particular site, cuttingedge.org. It's very Baptist in orientation in terms of denominations, but um, I'm not Baptist, but I definitely feel that people that are Baptist are very much allies, in this fight, so to speak. So yeah, so Democrat control led cities and states have already begun the planned decivilizations program. No trains, no planes, no automobiles. Welcome to decivilizations, Democrat utopia. Great. Gonna go back in time. Maybe really all about depopulating the planet eventually. I mean, what are wars about anyway, really? But meet the green energy group behind the study that's driving calls to ban gas stoves. Hmm, interesting. Once cities are dismantled, the process called rewilding can begin in earnest as land is uprooted and given back to the Indians. Manic methods of mad Democrats. Wow. Election warping. Wow, that's good. Projection. Election denialism. Suppression. Changing the rules. Great. Asymmetries. Where is America's next Abraham Lincoln? Where is him? Who knows? I mean, maybe he doesn't exist. Maybe he does exist somewhere, but he probably won't make it to the White House. That's for sure. He'll definitely get his brains blown out or something. But sad, House divided against itself cannot stand. Today, the nation needs wisdom every bit as badly as it was needed in the 1860s. house divided against itself cannot stand. Matthew chapter 12, verse 25. It's true. I mean, we live in an extremely divided country right now. America, a nation divided. God raised up Abraham Lincoln to lead the country through a civil war, which was divine judgment for slavery. Makes sense. He will not raise up anyone like Lincoln now, because the judgment about to flow will be annihilating. Therefore shall her plagues come in one day, death and mourning and famine, and she shall be utterly burned with fire. For strong is Yahweh who judgeth her. Revelation chapter 18, verse 8. Is the deep state ready to jettison Joe Biden as president? Who knows? The protocols hold the key to understanding Biden actually mishandled super secret government documents. The big problem with the Joe Biden document story is this. We know only what Joe Biden's lawyers have told us, and the appointment of a special counsel to investigate the case will make the problem worse. Now, citizens mistrust both political parties. Who is Robert Hur, the new special counsel investigating the Biden document saga? No idea. Let's have an investigation, have total control of people doing the investigations. Well, if you want to change the outcome, or if you want to control the outcome, you control both sides of the argument. All right, so we're moving on here. The Biden administration is not prepared for a war with China. Biden Defense Department's weapons supply is unprepared for a conflict with China. That makes sense. I mean, we gave so many weapons away to and artillery to the Ukraine over the past year or so, so it's not good. You know, we're disarming ourselves, I guess, in the process, so we can be annihilated at some point in the future. The late Pope Benedict penned a letter to the coming false prophet before the pontiff died in his recently revealed Antichrist letter, Papacy versus Antichrist. Interesting. He urged prayer against the expanding power of the Antichrist. Well, you know, he was representing the power of the Antichrist or anti-Messiah. You know, in his office. I mean, there's no other way to look at it. The Pope in Rome is really a continuation of the ancient Roman Caesars. Really, the ancient Roman Empire became the unholy Roman Empire. The Pope is really a symbol of the anti-Messiah, symbol of some kind of global fascist, or whatever you want to use, whatever way you want to classify him. So, Pope's message to the Pope illustrates the battle between the religious Vatican and the secular office of the Antichrist. In an age of lawlessness, part and song recognizes the judgment arm of Yahweh. She holds mankind accountable before judgment seat. She recognizes that Yahweh is the creator of all mankind. Part and chides all people to realize that man's actions and beliefs will most assuredly bring him into judgment. Pardon's message is grievously wrong. Fox News weatherman was seriously injured by a knife attack on the New York subway. Fox News is failing to protect subway riders after beatdown. The Ukraine war has lasted long enough to start huge payouts to defense contractors. Was VP Kamala Harris's remarks on purpose or deliberate? Kamala deletes the very first right from Declaration of Independence. She left off some most important word in the entire Constitution. Interesting. Yeah, I mean, there's always a lot of stuff happening in the world, but it's really nice to get like a biblical perspective of things that are happening, not just, the, ABC, CBS, NBC, CNN version of things, which, is definitely diluted and distorted in whatever context. So America is the most permissible nation in carrying out child mutilation surgeries designing to affirm gender. Most permissible nation. Child sex change operations. Great. Lovely. What it really comes down to is America is the ultimate representation, in my opinion, of the Bible. You have free will articulated in the Bible, and you have Yahweh's will articulated in the Bible. You can do whatever you want, or you can do what Yahweh wants, but it's all under the banner of freedom. So, America being most representative of freedom obviously opens the door to all kinds of crazy behavior. Anything could happen. People do whatever they want to do, or they do what Yahweh wants them to do based on what's outlined in his book, the Ten Commandments and all the other commandments all throughout Scripture and Yahshua's commandments. And it's really very interesting place to live, really. I mean, it's very anything goes, or on the flip side, if it's really two extremes, anything goes, do whatever you want, and you can definitely find other people to participate in your wild lifestyle, whatever it is, or you do what Yahweh wants. And there's plenty of people that are believers in the Messiah that, represent the other end of the spectrum. And it's really two opposite extremes. There's no common ground, when it comes down to it. But, that's America. I mean, anything, it's freedom. That's what it's all about. And where Yahweh is the Ruach, and where the Ruach of Yahweh is, there's freedom. So obviously the spirit of Yahweh is in America. And you look at a lot of other countries, I mean, people live in some kind of communist regime. I don't consider that a place where people experience freedom. They're experiencing persecution, or they're experiencing very limited form of government that is atheistic in orientation, and it's awful. And so, I don't know if Yahweh honestly lives in Cuba, places like that, some kind of communist regime country. I mean, it's horrible. Or socialistic country environment. I don't know, but I definitely feel his spirit in the U.S. I mean, there's definitely a lot of very bad things going on in the U.S. I mean, there always has been, but there's a lot of very good things. Most charitable country on the planet. So Babylon the Great, some people think that America is Babylon the Great. I don't know. I disagree with that, but I mean, that's just my opinion. I really feel it's the Vatican. This just, the way, if you look at the actual scripture verses, it's definitely pretty obvious, I think. They dressed in purple and scarlet. The Pope holds up the golden cup of abomination, and the city on the seven hills. Rome being the city on the seven hills, Vatican City right in the middle of Rome. Babylon, the great America has fallen to become the habitation of devils. I mean, that's definitely happened in the States, but it's also happened in the Vatican. I don't think that the Roman Catholic hierarchy is a benevolent force in the universe. I think they are wicked and corrupt, and that the Vatican is the habitation of devils. Absolutely. So the Vatican can easily be destroyed in one day by fire. So therefore shall her plagues come in one day, death and mourning and famine, and she shall be utterly burned. So this is the horror of Babylon, be utterly burned with fire, for strong is Yahweh who judgeth. Yeah. America's now gone beyond the sexual deviancy, lewdness, sordid conditions Sodom was in when Yahweh annihilated. Okay. It just depends. I mean, America is definitely a form of Babylon. I mean, the world, some people think, is Babylon itself, the horror of Babylon, but you know, I don't know. I mean, the way I look at it, it's I mean, the contagion is everywhere, the sickness is everywhere, the corruption is everywhere. Taiwan has declared that she is already an independent sovereign nation. already independent, has no need to declare its independence. Okay. Obviously, we're looking at a potential conflict with China and Taiwan. It's been building up for several years now. Therefore, it is unnecessary to make a special independence announcement. China has just lost their major red line. Okay. Ukraine burning through critical ammunition far faster than U.S. can replenish its inventory. The coming in ammunition gap, a new analysis for the Center for Strategic and International Studies is sounding an alarm about the length of time it will take. Yeah, here it is. It will take to rebuild America's munitions supply. So by effectively supporting and sending endless ammunition supplies to the Ukraine and all kinds of other military hardware, we're depleting our own um, our own supplies. If we were invaded, if we were ever targeted for destruction by who knows, Iran or China or Russia or whatever other country, look at it. We've effectively been uh, not completely disarmed, but essentially in terms of ammunition supply, this is a problem. This is crazy. 18 years to replenish our ammunition. Could take up to 18 years. Key weapon system munition ranges from a low of 2.5 years for to 18 years for Stinger shoulder fired anti-aircraft missiles. Is America running out of ammo to send to Ukraine? Is burning through ammunition for 155 millimeter howitzers quickly and is leaving the U.S. in a bind. So, what does the U.S. do if Russia invades Ukraine with enough force strategy? China waits to see this massive transfer occur. The moment when Russia and China believe our inventories of ammunition, from bullets to fieldmen, are now defunct, both countries will attack. And nuclear weapons, tactical nuclear weapons. So there you go. I mean, to look at it from the top down, and in the previous bigger picture section, a film book, um, just analysis section of the broadcast, I was discussing the role of the Jesuit order, how they have the world subdivided into assistancies in their organizational structure, and then you have in the U.S. you have the commands, the different commands. You have the Southern Command, Africa Command, Northern Command, the U.S. Northern Command. So um, realistically, these strategies, if you look at it bigger picture, right? What are the you want to have a war, but you also want it to be multifaceted in terms of what it accomplishes. I mean, that's my opinion. I mean, why waste a war just to kill a you know kill off maybe a certain population group? I mean, that's how some people probably look at it. They say, well, we can use this war to have a number of different effects globally, and the Russia-Ukraine war is just a perfect example of that. I mean, you're obviously destabilizing the region. You're setting up a potential European conflict if other countries, get completely involved. I mean, obviously they've been helping to support NATO countries have been helping to support Ukraine through this conflict, but what if there's a head-to-head conflict with Europe and Russia ultimately? That's some kind of potential. There's issues with the natural gas supplies, which is causing hyperinflation or crazy energy prices, at least in Europe, and supply chain issues and supply line issues. It's a problem. But realistically, looking at it from this angle, with the depletion of munitions in the U.S. as a result, and then simultaneously with other countries that are helping to support the Ukraine people in this battle against Russia, that's setting us up for for being essentially compromised in the event that we would ever be targeted, in some kind of invasion scenario. So it's interesting, but I look at it from a standpoint that the Jesuits are essentially orchestrating this to compromise America's position globally on the one side, destabilize Europe on the other side, and set things up for the future, where we're going to be in we're going to be in a bind. If so many of our munition supplies are extremely depleted as a result of being the quote unquote nice guy and helping to support the Ukraine or whatever other country in their different battles, that sets us up for compromise in the event of some kind of major escalation in this country if we're ever invaded. How do we defend ourselves if we're constantly helping everybody else out and sending our supplies overseas and depleting our own supplies? So it's sad. It's very sad. America's even stripping our stock space now in Israel. U.S. drains emergency weapons stockpile in Israel to arm Ukraine. There you go. Another situation which, you know, we at, for several decades have definitely had the back of Israel to whatever extent, depending in different ways and different fashions with different presidents, maybe some more than others. We defended Israel and their right to exist and defended their nation and help them out militarily. So obviously, if we're diverting supplies from Israel that to the Ukraine, then it's going to put them in a position of compromise. So it's sad. It's very sad. So this looking at all these different components, these variables, and taking into consideration the overall impact of some kind of this current conflict, but then setting things up for future circumstances in the U.S. Compromising the United States. Once they started sending, and then even the funding. I mean, talking about like tens of billions of dollars, $50 billion over here, $50 billion over here of taxpayer money getting sent overseas to help Ukraine, which honestly, I don't know. I don't think it's really a win-win situation over there at this point. I think it's just like a Vietnam or something, a war that just never ends, that just goes on, and people just keep fighting because they don't know what else to do. But I don't know what the clear purpose is, other than Russia reclaiming territory that was once part of the USSR. So, and preventing the Ukraine from joining NATO and allowing NATO to become even stronger. That was definitely a key point at at you know at the beginning of the invasion into the Ukraine. That was definitely pointed out by numerous Russian figureheads and Putin and generals about they can't allow this to happen. That they can't allow Ukraine to be absorbed into NATO. So they want to have a Russian empire, rebuilt Russian empire, rebuilt USSR ultimately. Iran continues to draw closer to Russia and Magog. Ancient Persia is Iran. Iran is now making drones for the Russians to use against Ukraine, and sending Hezbollah terrorists to Ukraine to assist Russia with drone attacks. Lovely. Russia to supply Iran with advanced Sukhoi 35 fighter jets as early as the spring. Some Ukrainian refugees are returning to Ukraine for medical treatments not available in the workers' paradise, England. Right? Key scientists sounds the COVID alarm, withdraw COVID shots immediately. Key scientist sounds alarm, withdraw COVID shots immediately. The yellow card. Right, so we're gonna get into this last section here. I like to just review. It's been a few weeks, but the war in Ukraine may be reaching a point of turn the war. So now we're sending 31 Abrams tanks to Ukraine. Okay, so again, to continue with this point, the effort to arm Ukraine has depleted U.S. weapons stockpiles in South Korea and Israel. So, of course, with North Korea and South Korea, there's always been tension that, if anything would happen there with that particular conflict, it's a problem. And they're leaving South Korea compromised. If the U.S. is an ally of South Korea, it's not a good idea to take away their supplies that could help defend their country. So the U.S. already underprepared for a major war is running low on munitions for its own defense. Exactly. Anti-aircraft system reportedly installed near Putin's official residence in Valdai. Interesting. Can finally see the truth. Canada's breathtaking program of an aggressive adult euthanasia program is murdering more rapidly at both ends of life. Canada's new euthanasia law carry upsetting Nazi era echoes. Interesting. Potentially minors. So awful. People suffering from mental health conditions. And except those days should be shortened, there should no flesh be saved. Or prophecy indicates such a widespread murder of the human race. Matthew chapter 24, verse 22. More California, dysfunctional state of California. State is losing its sanity, not to mention many of its citizens. It's just become this ultra liberal socialist communist nightmare. I mean, plenty of drug addicted, homeless people all over the place. I mean, I lived on the street and I stayed in homeless shelters in San Francisco back in 96. No, or sorry, 95. At the end of 95, I wanted to travel around the country. I ended up in San Francisco, and there's definitely, I mean, if that was bad at that time. So if it's any worse than that, it's pretty bad. So, and it's definitely a lot worse than it was. I mean, there's homeless encampments everywhere, all over San Francisco, all over Los Angeles, and it's getting kind of out of control because you have those kinds of environments, and it leads to a lot of crime, and it's just a very dangerous situation anyway. Progressive California runs people out that wants to tax them for leaving. Every rotten aspect of the planned Great Reset is growing by leaps and bounds in California. Street prostitution explodes in LA after Newsom restricts arrests for loitering. Beautiful. Mexican cartels control the border. Residents and officials in Yuma, Arizona. Progressives are already blaming climate change for the rash of recent violent storms. Biden blames climate change for storms while visiting California. So there it is. So pretty crazy week. Yeah. A lot of interesting things have happened, but unfortunate things, of course. So, all right. There it is. I think that's it.